The fork was halfway to my mouth when my phone buzzed. I glanced down at the screen and felt my blood turn cold. An unknown number. The message read, "Get up and leave. Now. Don't say anything to your parents." My dad was talking about his golf game. My mom was passing the mashed potatoes. Everything looked normal, safe, familiar. But my hands started shaking. Who sent this? Why? I looked at my parents' faces, searching for something wrong, some sign of danger. Then I heard it. Loud knocking at the front door. I froze at the dinner table, my phone hidden under the edge of the tablecloth. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure my parents could hear it. My dad, completely oblivious, was midway through explaining how he'd finally broken 80 on the back nine at Pinehurst Country Club. My mom laughed at something he said, reaching across the table to refill my water glass. "You okay, sweetie?" she asked, her brow furrowing slightly. "You look pale." I forced a smile, though my mouth felt dry as sandpaper. "I'm fine, just a little warm." The knocking came again, louder this time. 3 sharp raps that echoed through our quiet suburban home. My father sighed, setting down his napkin with the kind of irritation only a man interrupted during dinner can muster. "Who the hell shows up at 7:30 without calling first?" he muttered, pushing back from the table. My phone buzzed again. I looked down, trying to keep my hands steady. Another message from the same unknown number. "Back door. 30 seconds. Trust me, 30 seconds." My mind raced. This had to be some kind of joke, right? But the knocking grew more insistent, and something in my gut told me this was real. This was serious. "I need to use the bathroom," I blurted out, standing so quickly my chair scraped against the hardwood floor. My mother looked concerned now. "Natasha, are you sure you're feeling all right?" "Yeah, Mom. Just something I ate at lunch, maybe. They'll be right back." I grabbed my purse from the side table, trying to look casual, and headed toward the hallway. But instead of turning left toward the bathroom, I veered right, through the kitchen, my heart hammering against my ribs. Through the kitchen window, I could see my father opening the front door, could see the silhouettes of multiple people on the porch. I unlocked the back door as quietly as I could and slipped out into the cool evening air. The sun had just set, leaving the backyard bathed in that strange purple twilight that makes everything look slightly unreal. I pressed myself against the side of the house, my breath coming in short gasps. "Natasha." I actually had to put my hand against the fence to steady myself. "That's impossible." "My parents? You have the wrong people. My dad's an accountant. My mom works in real estate. They're not criminals." I wish that were true. Sarah pulled a manila folder from inside her blazer and held it out to me. "Look at this later." "Not now. But you need to see what's inside. And Natasha, listen to me very carefully. Do not go back inside tonight. Do you have somewhere you can stay?" Before I could answer, I heard raised voices from inside the house. My mother's voice, high and frightened. My father's, loud and defensive. The sound of heavy footsteps, multiple people talking at once. What are they doing to them? I started to move toward the house, but Sarah caught my arm. "They're executing a warrant. Your parents are being arrested." "I'm sorry, but this has been in the works for months. We have overwhelming evidence." I yanked my arm free and ran to the kitchen window, peering through the glass. What I saw made my knees weak. 4 uniformed police officers in the living room. My mother, her face streaked with tears, as a female officer led her toward the front door. Her hands were behind her back. Handcuffs. My father, red-faced and shouting, being guided out by 2 officers. He was in handcuffs too. "No," I whispered. "No, no, no." My phone started ringing. Dad's name flashed on the screen. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped it. I stared at his name, at the photo of him smiling at my college graduation, and I couldn't make myself answer. The ringing stopped, then started again immediately. I silenced it. Sarah touched my shoulder gently. "Natasha, I know this is a shock. But please, open that folder. Read what's inside. You need to understand the full situation." With trembling fingers, I opened the folder. The first document was a bank statement. I scanned it quickly, not really processing what I was seeing at first. Then my eyes caught on something that made my blood run cold. My name, not as a reference or a contact, as the account holder. Natasha Ann Cooper in bold letters at the top. An account I'd never opened. An account with a balance of $347,000. I flipped to the next page. Another bank statement. Another account in my name. This one showed deposits and withdrawals going back 3 years. Large amounts. Tens of thousands of dollars moving in and out. I didn't open these accounts. I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I know, Sarah said quietly. Keep looking. The next documents were even worse. Business loan applications. My signature at the bottom. Except I'd never signed them. Articles of incorporation for companies I'd never heard of. All listing me as the owner or primary officer. My social security number on every single page. My parents had been using my identity for years. I sat in my car in the parking lot of a 24-hour diner 3 miles from my parents' house. The overhead light illuminating page after page of documents that were destroying everything I thought I knew about my life. My hands had stopped shaking, replaced by a cold numbness that felt almost worse. The bank accounts were just the beginning. There were business loans taken out in my name totaling over $600,000. Shell companies registered in Delaware, Nevada, and Wyoming, all with me listed as the sole proprietor. Real estate transactions. Investment accounts. Tax returns filed under my social security number for income I'd never earned. The dates made me sick. The earliest document was from 7 years ago, when I was 21 years old and fresh out of college. I'd been so excited to start my first real job, to finally be independent. And that whole time, my parents had been building this elaborate fraud, using me as their shield. I picked up my phone and scrolled back through old photos, looking for clues I'd missed. There. A picture from tax season 3 years ago. My mom sitting at her kitchen table with my laptop open, papers spread everywhere. Shed called me that night, said Shed helped organize my tax documents to make things easier for me. I'd been grateful. I'd thanked her for being so thoughtful. Shed been stealing my identity. Another photo from 5 years ago. My dad had asked to borrow my social security card because he needed it for some insurance paperwork he was helping me with. Head kept it for 2 weeks, said the insurance company was being slow. I'd trusted him completely. Why wouldn't I? He was my father. My phone lit up with another call. Mom this time. I stared at her contact photo, the one of us at her birthday dinner last year, both of us smiling and happy. The call went to voicemail. 10 seconds later, a notification popped up. Shed left a message. Against my better judgment, I played it. Natasha, sweetie, please. Her voice was thick with tears, but there was something else underneath it. Something urgent and almost demanding. This is all a huge misunderstanding. The police don't understand the situation. We need you to come to the station and tell them that you knew about the business ventures, that we were working together. It's the only way to fix this. Please, baby, call me back. Don't talk to anyone until you talk to us first. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. She wanted me to lie, to claim I'd been involved, to make myself complicit in whatever they'd done. Another text came through, this time from my dad. Don't talk to the police without us present. You'll ruin everything. We're a family. We protect each other. Protect each other. The words made me want to scream. They hadn't protected me. They'd used me. They'd turned my identity into a criminal enterprise. I was about to turn off my phone when it rang again. Detective Sarah Brennan's number. Hello? Natasha, it's Sarah. Are you somewhere safe? I'm in a parking lot. A diner on Route 42. Good. I need you to come to the station tomorrow morning. 9 o'clock. There's a lot we need to discuss, and you need to make an official statement. Am I in trouble? The question came out small, frightened. Sarah's voice softened. Not if we can prove you had no knowledge of what they were doing. And based on what I've seen, I believe you didn't. But Natasha, this is serious. Your parents embezzled $2.3 million from investors. They used your identity to create shell companies and hide the money trail. Legally, you're liable unless we can establish that you were a victim of identity theft, not a co-conspirator. $2.3 million. The number was so large it didn't feel real. Who did they steal from? I asked. though I wasn't sure I wanted to know the answer. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Investors, mostly elderly people who trusted your father with their retirement savings. He and his business partner ran what amounts to a Ponzi scheme. They promised high returns, used new investors' money to pay old investors, and funneled the rest into accounts they controlled. When people started asking questions, they used the shell companies in your name to move the money around and hide the trail. I closed my eyes, feeling tears burn behind my eyelids. Elderly people. People who had worked their whole lives, who had trusted their savings to someone they thought was honest. And my father had robbed them. There's something else you need to know, Sarah continued. Your brother has been helping us with this investigation, Marcus. I sat up straighter. What do you mean has been helping you? He came to us 6 months ago. He works as a bank analyst at First National, and he noticed some suspicious transactions linked to your parents' accounts. He started digging on his own time, and when he found evidence of fraud, he brought it to us. 6 months. My little brother had been investigating our parents for 6 months and hadn't said a word to me. Why didn't he tell me? I asked, my voice cracking. Sarah hesitated. Natasha, I'm not sure how to say this gently, so I'm just going to say it. When Marcus found the documents with your name on them, he thought you might be involved. He wasn't sure if you were a victim or a co-conspirator. He wanted to protect you if you were innocent, but he also couldn't let the crime continue if you were part of it. The betrayal cut deeper than anything else that night. My own brother had thought I was a criminal, had been investigating me along with our parents. I need to talk to him, I said. Can you give me his number? I know he's changed it recently. He's actually here at the station right now, helping us process some of the evidence. If you want, I can arrange for you two to meet tomorrow morning before your official statement. Neutral location. There's a coffee shop 2 blocks from the station called Brewed Awakening. 8 o'clock. Yes. Yes, please. I need to see him. After I hung up, I sat in my car for another hour, unable to make myself drive home. My apartment suddenly felt too empty, too quiet, too much like a place where I'd have to face the reality of what was happening. Eventually, exhaustion won. I drove home, let myself into my small 1-bedroom place, and collapsed on the couch without even taking off my shoes. Sleep didn't come. Instead, I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, wondering how many times I'd missed the signs. How many conversations had hidden meanings I'd been too trusting to see. How many times had my parents looked me in the eye and lied? Around 3 in the morning, my phone buzzed with a text from my mom. Just 3 words. I'm so sorry. I didn't reply. Brewed Awakening was one of those aggressively cheerful coffee shops with exposed brick walls, mismatched vintage furniture, and chalkboard menus listing drinks with names like The Morning Motivator and Caramel Dreams. Under different circumstances, I might have found it charming. Today, it just felt absurd, like someone had set a scene of normalcy in the middle of my collapsing world. I arrived at 7:45, ordered a black coffee I had no intention of drinking, and claimed a corner table where I could see the door. My stomach was in knots. I hadn't seen Marcus in 3 months, not since our family barbecue in July where everything had seemed so perfectly normal. Head brought his girlfriend, Amy. Mom had made her famous potato salad. Dad had burned the burgers like always, and we'd all laughed about it. Had he known then? Had he already been investigating them, collecting evidence while we all sat around pretending to be a functional family? The door chimed at exactly 8 o'clock. Marcus walked in, and for a second, we just looked at each other across the coffee shop. Had always been the baby of the family, 5 years younger than me, but right now he looked older than his 25 years. There were dark circles under his eyes, and his usual easy smile was nowhere to be found. He walked to my table slowly, like he was approaching something fragile that might shatter. Maybe he was. Hey Tash, he said quietly, using the nickname Head, called me since he was 6 years old, and couldn't quite pronounce Natasha. Hey. He sat down across from me, his hands wrapped around a coffee cup Head brought from the counter. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The silence stretched between us, filled with everything we needed to say and didn't know how to start. Finally, I broke. Did you really think I was part of it? Marcus flinched like Id slapped him. I didn't want to think that. God, Natasha. You have no idea how much I didn't want to think that. But the evidence. What evidence? What could possibly make you think I'd steal millions of dollars from elderly people? Your name was on everything. His voice rose, then dropped when other patrons glanced our way. Every account, every company, every transaction. Your signature, your social security number, your information. What was I supposed to think? You were supposed to know me. Tears burned in my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. You were supposed to know that I would never, ever do something like that. I wanted to believe that. I tried to find evidence that you'd been framed, that someone had stolen your identity. But Tash, some of those signatures looked real. Some of the documents had details only you would know. I spent weeks trying to prove you were innocent before I even went to the police. And what did you find? He looked down at his coffee. That Mom and Dad are really, really good at forgery. That they'd been planning this for years. That they practiced your signature hundreds of times until they could replicate it perfectly. I found the practice sheets in Dad's office, hidden in a file cabinet. Your name, over and over again, in his handwriting, getting closer to your real signature each time. The image made me sick. My father, sitting at his desk, methodically learning to forge my signature so he could steal my identity. Why didn't you tell me when you first suspected something? Marcus finally met my eyes. Because I was terrified. If you were innocent and I told you, I thought you might confront them and they'd destroy evidence. If you were guilty and I told you, you might run or cover your tracks. I didn't know what to do, Tash. I was 24 years old, and I'd just discovered that my parents were criminals and my sister might be too. So I went to the police and let them guide me. I wanted to be angry with him. Part of me was angry with him, but I could also hear the pain in his voice, the confusion and fear that mirrored my own. I'm not part of it, I said firmly. I swear to you, Marcus. I had no idea any of this was happening. Those accounts, those companies, I never opened them. I never signed those documents. I never touched that money. I believe you now, he said quietly. Detective Brennan showed me more evidence last night. Security footage from banks where accounts were opened in your name, except it's Mom in the video, wearing a wig that looks like your hair. Document timestamps showing paperwork being scanned from Dad's office computer. Phone records proving you were at work when transactions were made. I believe you, Tash. I'm sorry I ever doubted you. Some of the tension in my chest eased, but not all of it. Tell me everything. I need to know what they did, all of it. Marcus took a deep breath and started talking. The story that emerged was worse than I'd imagined. Our father, who I'd always thought of as a straight-laced accountant, had been running a sophisticated investment fraud scheme for the past 7 years. Had partnered with a financial advisor named Gregory Walsh, and together they'd convinced elderly investors to trust them with their retirement savings. They promised 12% annual returns. Marcus explained, his voice hollow. They'd pay out the returns for the first couple of years using new investors' money, and the victims would trust them even more. Then they'd convince them to reinvest the returns, to put in even more principal. Classic Ponzi scheme structure. How many victims? 17 families that we know of. The Delgados lost $400,000. The Johnsons lost $360,000. The Crawfords lost everything they had, almost $500,000. Some of these people are in their 70s and 80s, Tash. They can't recover from this. They'll never be able to retire now. I felt sick. How did they get away with it for so long? They were smart about it. They kept the victim pools small, mostly people Dad knew personally from his church and the country club. People who trusted him. And they used your shell companies to move money through multiple accounts, making it harder to trace. Gregory handled most of the financial engineering. Dad was the face, the trusted friend who made people feel safe. Where's Gregory now? Marcus' expression darkened. That's the thing. He disappeared 2 weeks before the arrests. The FBI has a warrant out for him, but he's in the wind. They think he might have fled the country. A chill ran down my spine. So he's still out there somewhere. Yeah. And Tash, there's something else you need to know. Marcus pulled out his phone and showed me a photograph of a legal document. This is the statement Mom gave to the police during her initial questioning. She's claiming that you set up the shell companies and told them to use your name. That you were the mastermind, and they were just following your instructions. The room seemed to tilt. What? Dad's lawyer is building a defense strategy that pins everything on you. They're going to argue that you manipulated your elderly parents into helping you defraud investors, that they were unaware of the full scope of the crime. The lawyer's good, Tash. His name is Robert Chen, and he's known for getting white-collar criminals reduced sentences by finding scapegoats. I'm the scapegoat. It wasn't a question. They're trying to make you one, but Detective Brennan won't let that happen. She's collecting evidence to prove you're a victim. The surveillance footage, the computer records, witness statements from your coworkers confirming your whereabouts during key transactions. You're going to be okay. I wasn't sure I believed him. The weight of what was happening pressed down on me like a physical force. My own parents were trying to destroy me to save themselves. I can't believe they'd do this to me, I whispered. I'm their daughter. I know. Marcus reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I keep thinking about when we were kids. Remember how Dad used to take us fishing at Lake Monroe every summer? How Mom would make pancakes every Sunday morning? Were they always like this, and we just didn't see it? Or did something change them? I didn't have an answer. We sat there together. Two siblings trying to make sense of parents we no longer recognized. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I opened it without thinking, and my blood ran cold. It was a photograph of me, walking into my apartment building yesterday evening. The angle suggested it had been taken from across the street with a telephoto lens. Below the image, a message. Drop the investigation or face the consequences. Your parents aren't the only ones watching you. I showed Marcus the phone with shaking hands. His face went pale. We need to show this to Detective Brennan right now, he said, standing up. Someone's threatening you. This just became a lot more dangerous. As we walked out of the coffee shop into the bright morning sun, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me. I scanned the street, the parked cars, the windows of the buildings across the way. Somewhere out there, someone was tracking my movements, someone who didn't want the truth to come out. And I had a sinking feeling I knew who it might be. Detective Sarah Brennan looked at the threatening text on my phone and her jaw tightened. We were in her office at the police station, a cramped space with a metal desk, 2 worn chairs, and walls covered in whiteboards filled with names and dates and arrows connecting everything together. One of those whiteboards was dedicated entirely to my parents' case. This changes things, Sarah said, her fingers already flying across her keyboard. Marcus, what time did Natasha receive this? About 20 minutes ago, while we were at the coffee shop. And the photo was taken yesterday evening, correct? She looked at me. Yes. Around 7:15, right after I got home from work. I remember because I checked my watch before going inside. Sarah picked up her desk phone and made a quick call. I need a protective detail assigned to Natasha Cooper, effective immediately. Yes, the embezzlement case. We just received a credible threat. Thank you. She hung up and turned back to us. Natasha, starting today, you'll have an officer assigned to watch your apartment. We're taking this seriously. Who do you think sent it? Marcus asked. My first thought is Gregory Walsh. He's the one with the most to lose if this investigation continues. But I'll be honest, the timing concerns me. This message came shortly after Natasha was seen with you at a public location. Someone's actively tracking her movements. Could my parents have arranged this from jail? I asked. Sarah shook her head. Unlikely. They're being held without bail, and all their communications are monitored. They'd be foolish to make threats under those circumstances. No, this is someone on the outside. Someone with resources and motivation to keep this buried. She pulled up something on her computer, then turned the monitor toward us. In some, he looked professional, in expensive suits with perfect hair. In others, he looked completely different, casual and unremarkable. He's also excellent at disappearing, Sarah continued. This isn't his first time vanishing before the authorities could arrest him. In 1998, he ran a similar scheme in Connecticut. He disappeared 3 days before the FBI raid, and they didn't find him for 2 years. When they did, had been living in Arizona under a different name. How did my parents get involved with someone like him? I asked. Sarah pulled up more files. That's where it gets interesting. We've been digging into your parents' financial history, trying to understand their motivation. Turns out, about 15 years ago, they were in serious financial trouble. Your father had made some bad investments, and they were about to lose their house. Marcus and I exchanged looks. I don't remember that, he said. We were just kids. But I don't remember any money problems. They hid it well. But according to bank records and court documents we've found, they were 90 days from foreclosure. Then suddenly, everything got paid off. The mortgage became current, the credit cards were cleared, everything was fine again. How? I asked, though part of me didn't want to know the answer. Insurance fraud, Sarah said bluntly. Your mother filed a claim for a house fire that destroyed valuable jewelry and electronics. The claim was for $73,000. But here's the thing. The fire was suspiciously small and contained. It only damaged one room, and investigators at the time had doubts about whether it was accidental. But your parents had a good lawyer, and the insurance company eventually paid out rather than fight it in court. I felt sick, and Gregory was involved. We think he's the one who suggested it. We found records showing that Gregory and your father knew each other even back then. They were in the same business networking group. After the insurance payout, Gregory had regular contact with your parents. We believe he held that insurance fraud over their heads for years, using it as leverage. Blackmail, Marcus said quietly. Exactly. Gregory needed respectable people with clean records to be the face of his investment scheme. Your parents fit perfectly. They were already compromised by the insurance fraud, so they couldn't refuse without risking exposure. And over time, they got comfortable with the money. They stopped seeing themselves as victims of Gregory's manipulation and became willing participants. The picture Sarah was painting made a horrible kind of sense. My parents hadn't woken up one day and decided to become criminals. They'd made one desperate choice, and that choice had trapped them in a spiral that led to bigger and bigger crimes. That doesn't excuse what they did, I said firmly. They still chose to hurt all those people. You're right, Sarah agreed. Understanding how they got here doesn't excuse their actions. But it helps us understand the full scope of the conspiracy. And it confirms that Gregory is the most dangerous person in this equation. Has got experience, resources, and absolutely no loyalty to anyone. She clicked to another screen, this one showing a map of the city with several locations marked. We've been tracking Gregory's movements before he disappeared. He had an apartment downtown under the alias Gerard Williams. We're planning a raid on that location this afternoon. If we're lucky, well, find records, evidence, maybe even a clue about where he went. Can I be there? I asked. When you raid the apartment. Sarah looked doubtful. That's not standard procedure, Natasha. It could be dangerous. Hez using my identity. Hez threatening me. I need to see what he's done, please. Sarah studied me for a long moment, then sighed. You can observe from a safe distance. In the surveillance van, not on the entry team, and only because I think seeing this might help you understand what you're up against. Agreed. Agreed. The raid was scheduled for 4 o'clock that afternoon. Sarah wanted to time it for when most people in the building would be at work, minimizing the risk of civilians getting caught in the operation. Marcus stayed with me at the station, and we spent the intervening hours going through more evidence with Sarah's team. The sheer volume of documentation was staggering. Thousands of pages of bank statements, emails, forged documents. As I read through them, I started to understand the sophisticated nature of what Gregory had built. Had created an entire phantom business empire, using my parents' legitimate accounting firm as a front to recruit investors, and my identity to create the shell companies that hid the money. One email exchange made me particularly angry. It was between my father and Gregory, discussing me specifically. My father had written, Natasha's too trusting. She won't question anything we tell her about handling her paperwork. She's the perfect cover. Gregory's response, good. Keep her in the dark. The less she knows, the better protected we are. If this goes south, we need her to look guilty enough to create reasonable doubt. They'd planned to frame me from the beginning. This hadn't been a last-minute desperate move. Using my identity had always been part of Gregory's strategy. At 3:30, Sarah collected Marcus and me and led us to a large black surveillance van parked in the station's garage. Inside were monitors, communication equipment, and 2 technical specialists who would coordinate the raid. Another officer, a friendly woman named Petra Russo, was assigned as my close protection. We drove to downtown, parking 3 blocks away from Gregory's apartment building, a modern high-rise with lots of glass and steel. Through the van's monitors, I could see the tactical team getting into position, dressed in body armor with FBI marked clearly on their vests. "Remember," Sarah said, speaking into her radio, "we're looking for evidence, financial records, computers, phones, and any indication of where Walsh might have gone. Be thorough but careful. Has smart enough to have left traps or wiped data. Copy that," came the response from the team leader. I watched on the monitors as the team entered the building, moved through the lobby, and took the elevator to the 14th floor. My heart pounded as they approached apartment 1412. The team leader knocked, announced police presence, then used a battering ram to open the door when no one answered. The apartment was stunning. Floor-to-ceiling windows, expensive furniture, artwork on the walls. And it was completely empty of people. The team moved through room by room, clearing each space. Living room clear, kitchen clear, bedroom 1 clear, bedroom 2 clear, office. "Hold on, we've got something here." The camera feed switched to the office, and I gasped. One entire wall was covered in papers, photographs, and documents, all connected with red string like something from a crime thriller. But what made my blood run cold was the center of that wall. It was my face, a large photograph of me, with dozens of documents radiating out from it, bank statements, business licenses, loan applications, all in my name. And written in red marker across my photograph were the words, "Primary Liability Shield. Has been planning this for years," Sarah said quietly beside me. "Every step was designed to make you look guilty." The team started photographing everything, bagging evidence, and loading computers into cases. Then one of the officers called out from the bedroom, "We've got a safe here, calling in the specialist." It took 40 minutes for the safe specialist to arrive and crack the combination. When they finally got it open, the camera feed showed stacks of cash, multiple passports, and a leather portfolio. "Cash estimate, $400,000, the team leader reported. Multiple passports with different names, all with Walsh's photo. And wait, there's something else. An officer pulled out the portfolio and opened it. Inside were documents, which they began photographing and transmitting back to the van. As the images appeared on our monitor, Sarah leaned forward, her expression growing grimmer with each page. "These are new identity documents," she said. "For someone named Michelle Cooper, female, 28 years old, 5'6", brown hair, green eyes." Marcus looked at me, his face pale. "That's Natasha's height and description." Sarah clicked through more images. A fake passport with my photo but the name Michelle Cooper. A driver's license with my face. Credit cards, birth certificate, social security card. All fake, all with my picture, all with this alternate identity. "He was going to frame you completely," Sarah said. "He was going to make it look like you fled the country with the money. These documents are designed to create a trail showing you assumed a new identity and disappeared. If we hadn't caught him first, you would have been on the run for a crime you didn't commit while he lived comfortably somewhere with no extradition." I felt like I couldn't breathe. The van suddenly seemed too small, too hot. Officer Russo noticed and opened the back doors, letting in fresh air. "There's more." The team leader's voice crackled over the radio. "We found a burn bag, partially packed. Looks like he left in a hurry. There's a laptop in here that wasn't wiped. We're bringing everything back now." As the team loaded their evidence and headed back to the station, Sarah made phone calls, coordinating with other agencies and issuing alerts. Marcus sat beside me, his hand on my shoulder, a silent presence of support. "The good news," Sarah finally said, "is that all of this evidence works in your favor. It proves you were set up. No jury would convict you with this much documentation showing Gregory's intent to frame you." "What about my parents?" I asked. "Do they know about all this?" "Well, question them again with this new evidence. My guess is Gregory told them just enough to make them complicit, but not enough to understand his full plan. They probably thought they were just borrowing your identity temporarily, not realizing Gregory was building a comprehensive frame job." My phone buzzed with a text. For a moment, I was afraid it would be another threat. But it was from Detective Sarah's official number. which meant it had been cleared through the police system. The message contained a single sentence that changed everything. Financial analysis found discrepancy in Gregory's offshore accounts. The missing $1.8 million is still traceable. He lied about moving it. We can recover almost everything. I looked up at Sarah, who was reading the same message on her phone. Our eyes met. We can make the victims whole, she said, and for the first time since this nightmare began, she smiled. We can actually fix what your parents and Gregory destroyed. For the first time in days, I felt something other than fear and betrayal. I felt hope. The discovery that most of the stolen money could be recovered changed everything. It didn't erase what my parents had done or undo the damage Gregory had caused, but it meant the 17 families who'd lost their savings might actually get their lives back. And knowing that gave me something I desperately needed, a purpose. I wasn't just going to be a victim in this story. I was going to fight back. The next morning, I met with my own attorney. Not a criminal defense lawyer. Because I wasn't a criminal. A victims' rights attorney named Diana Porter who specialized in identity theft cases. She was a sharp woman in her mid-50s with silver hair cut in a precise bob and eyes that didn't miss anything. I've reviewed all the documents Detective Brennan sent over, Diana said, sitting across from me in her office. Natasha, you have one of the most comprehensive identity theft cases I've ever seen. But the good news is, the evidence supporting your innocence is equally comprehensive. We're going to clear your name completely. How long will that take? Months, probably. These cases are complicated. But I'm also going to pursue a civil case against Gregory Walsh for damages. What he did to you goes beyond the criminal charges. He destroyed your credit, used your identity to commit fraud, and created documentation designed to make you look like a criminal. You're entitled to compensation. I don't care about money, I said. I just want my life back. I understand. But compensation isn't just about money. It's about justice. It's about making him pay for what he did to you. And frankly, any judgment we win can be used to help compensate the other victims too. That got my attention. How? Diana pulled out a legal pad and started sketching a diagram. If we can locate Gregory's hidden assets, any civil judgment against him can be used to seize those assets. Criminal restitution will take priority, but your case can help identify accounts and properties that might otherwise stay hidden. Think of yourself as another investigative tool in recovering the money. I liked that idea. Being useful. Being part of the solution instead of just a victim. Over the next few weeks, Diana and I worked closely with Detective Sarah and her team. Diana hired a forensic accountant, a brilliant woman named Janet Chung, who could track money through the most complex schemes imaginable. Janet started analyzing every transaction, every account, every shell company, looking for patterns and connections. Gregory made a mistake, Janet explained, during one of our meetings. He's smart, but he got cocky. Look at this. She pulled up a spreadsheet showing hundreds of transactions. Most of these are perfectly laundered, moving through multiple accounts, different states, different banks. But here, she pointed to one transaction. $50,000 moved from one of your shell companies to an account he thought was hidden. But it's actually traceable because he used a bank that has reporting requirements he didn't account for. What does that mean? I asked. It means I can follow the money. And when I follow this $50,000, it leads to other accounts. Watch. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling up account after account, each connected to the last. These are offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands. Gregory moved $1.8 million here over the course of 3 years. He told your parents the money was gone, unrecoverable. But it's not. It's sitting right here, just hidden. Sarah leaned forward. Can we seize it? With the right warrants and cooperation from Cayman banking authorities? Yes. It'll take time, but it's absolutely possible. I felt something fierce and determined rising in my chest. Let's do it. Let's get every penny back. The legal process was exhausting. Depositions, interviews, document reviews, affidavits. I spent hours recounting every interaction I'd ever had with my parents that might have been them stealing my information. The time Mom asked to see my passport for safekeeping. The time Dad borrowed my laptop to check his email. the time they convinced me to add them to my bank account as emergency contacts. Every memory felt contaminated now. Every moment of trust revealed as manipulation. But through it all, Marcus was there. We'd grown closer through this nightmare, talking almost every day, supporting each other through the hardest parts. He was dealing with his own guilt about investigating me, and I was learning to forgive him for it. "I should have trusted you from the start," he said one evening over takeout Chinese food in my apartment. Officer Russo was stationed outside, keeping watch. "You were trying to do the right thing," I replied. "And honestly, Marcus, I'm not sure I would have believed it either if I'd found all that evidence. It looked bad." "I get that now. You're handling this whole thing better than I would," he said. "If my own parents had done this to me, I think it'd fall apart." "I'm falling apart on the inside," I admitted. "I just can't let it show on the outside." "Not yet. Not until this is over." 6 weeks after the raid on Gregory's apartment, Diana got a call from Detective Sarah. They'd located Gregory. Had been arrested trying to board a plane to the Cayman Islands from Miami International Airport. Had been using one of his fake passports, the one that identified him as Thomas Bradley, but facial recognition software had flagged him. When they searched him, he had $400,000 in cash in his luggage, split between 2 large suitcases. Had lied about the money being gone. Had kept it, planning to disappear permanently. Hess being held without bail. Sarah told us during an emergency meeting at her office, federal charges, flight risk, the whole works. And Natasha, he tried to make a deal. He offered to provide information on other financial crimes in exchange for a reduced sentence. "Did you take it?" I asked. "The prosecutor is considering it. But here's the thing, Gregory doesn't have as much leverage as he thinks. We've already recovered most of the evidence we need. Janet's forensic accounting work has been brilliant. We've traced almost every dollar. We don't need his cooperation." "Good," I said firmly. "I don't want him getting a deal. I want him to face the full consequences of what he did." Sarah nodded approvingly. "I thought you might say that. Pass that along to the prosecutor. The victims' opinions carry weight in these cases. Speaking of the victims, that was the hardest part of all this. Diana had arranged for me to meet with them, to apologize, even though none of this was my fault, to try to offer some closure. The first meeting was with an elderly couple named Helen and Arthur Crawford. They lived in a modest apartment now, having sold their house to pay bills after losing their savings. Helen was 76, Arthur 79. They welcomed me into their home with a kindness that made me want to cry. "You don't have to apologize, dear," Helen said as we sat in her living room drinking tea. Detective Brennan explained everything. "You're a victim just like us. But it was my name on all those documents," I said, my voice breaking. "My identity that was used to hurt you." Arthur reached over and patted my hand with his weathered one. "That wasn't your choice. You didn't do this to us. Gregory Walsh did. Your parents did, not you. I just want you to know that we're working to get your money back," I said. "The forensic accountant found where Gregory hid it. You're going to be made whole. All of you." Helen's eyes filled with tears. "We'd given up hope of ever seeing that money again. We thought we'd spend the rest of our lives trying to survive on just Social Security. Arthur has health problems. We were so scared. I'm going to fix this. I promised them. However long it takes, whatever I have to do, I'm going to make sure you get your money back." As I left their apartment that day, Helen hugged me tight. "You're a brave girl," she whispered. "Don't let this break you." I met with 3 more victim families over the next week. Each meeting was emotionally draining but also strangely healing. These people, who had every right to hate me and everyone connected to this case, showed me compassion and understanding. They reminded me that most people are fundamentally good, even when they've been hurt. 8 weeks after Gregory's arrest, Janet completed her forensic analysis. She'd traced every dollar of the $2.3 million that had been stolen. $400,000 had been in Gregory's luggage when he was arrested. $1.8 million was in the offshore accounts. The remaining $100,000 had been spent over the years on Gregory's lifestyle, but even some of that could be recovered through asset seizures. He owned a boat, a vacation property in Florida, and several vehicles, all purchased with stolen money. We can get back approximately 2.1 million, Janet announced at a meeting with all the lawyers, detectives, and victims' representatives. That's 91% recovery. The victims will lose some money, but far less than they feared. The relief in that room was palpable. Several people cried. I cried too, but for different reasons. This was the first unambiguously good news since this nightmare began. The criminal trial was set for 5 months away. My parents, facing overwhelming evidence and the prospect of Gregory testifying against them to save himself, agreed to a plea deal. They would plead guilty to fraud and conspiracy charges in exchange for reduced sentences and full cooperation in recovering the remaining assets. I went to see them before they accepted the plea. It was the first time I'd spoken to them since the night they were arrested. The meeting took place in a small room at the county jail, monitored by guards and recorded for legal purposes. My mother looked like she'd aged 10 years. My father's confident swagger was gone, replaced by a defeated slump. Natasha, my mother said when I sat down across from them. Sweetie. I don't call me sweetie, I interrupted. You don't get to use endearments, not after what you did. She flinched, and part of me felt bad for being harsh. But the larger part of me, the part that had spent 2 months cleaning up their mess, felt nothing but cold anger. We're sorry, my father said. We never meant for any of this to happen. Yes, you did. You meant for all of it to happen. You meant to steal people's money. You meant to use my identity. You meant to frame me if you got caught. Don't tell me you didn't mean it. They both looked down at the table. Gregory had blackmail material on us? My mother tried. The insurance fraud from years ago. He threatened to expose us. So you committed bigger crimes? That's your defense? You were being blackmailed, so you decided to ruin 17 families and throw your own daughter under the bus. We were scared, my father said quietly. So were the Crawfords. So were the Delgados. So were all the people who trusted you. They were scared, too, when they realized their money was gone, when they thought they'd have to spend the rest of their lives in poverty because you betrayed them. My mother started crying. My father just stared at the table. I came here to tell you that I'm testifying at your sentencing hearing, I continued. I'm going to tell the judge exactly what you did to me, how you stole my identity, how you tried to frame me, how you put your own freedom above your own daughter's life. And then I'm going to tell the judge that I think you should accept your punishment, serve your time, and maybe, after you've paid your debt to society, we can talk about forgiveness. But not before. Natasha, please, my mother whispered. I'm also going to tell the judge that you were manipulated by Gregory. I added, my voice softening slightly. That you made terrible choices, but that you're not the masterminds here. That you deserve a chance at redemption. Because despite everything, you're still my parents, and I can't completely stop loving you, even though I want to. That was the truth I'd been avoiding. Despite the betrayal, despite the anger, there was still a part of me that remembered the good times. The camping trips and birthday parties and family dinners before everything went wrong. That little girl who loved her parents was still inside me somewhere, confused and hurt. Well, take the plea deal, my father said. Well, cooperate fully. Well, do whatever we can to make this right. It's a start, I said. As I left the jail that day, I felt something shift inside me. I'd confronted them. I'd spoken my truth. And while it didn't fix everything, it felt like the beginning of being able to move forward. 3 months later, all the pieces finally came together. Gregory's trial resulted in a conviction on all counts. He received 35 years in federal prison with no possibility of parole. My parents, true to their word, had cooperated fully and received reduced sentences of 5 years each, with eligibility for parole after 3 years. All the stolen money was recovered and returned to the victims. The Crawfords got their savings back. So did the Delgados and the Johnsons, and all the other families. It wasn't perfect, they'd lost years of investment returns they could have earned, but it was far better than losing everything. And as for me, all charges and suspicions were formally dropped. My credit was restored. The shell companies in my name were dissolved. Diana even managed to get my identity theft case fast-tracked through the system, giving me official documentation that I was a victim, not a perpetrator. It wasn't perfect, but it was justice, and sometimes that's the best you can hope for. The day the restitution checks were distributed to the victims felt like the first day of spring after a long, brutal winter. Diana had arranged for a formal ceremony at the courthouse, not for publicity, but to give the victims a moment of closure, a tangible end to their nightmare. I stood in the back of the courtroom, watching as each family was called forward to receive their check and a formal apology from the court. Some cried. Some smiled. Some just looked relieved, like they'd been holding their breath for months and could finally exhale. Helen Crawford was one of the first called. She walked slowly to the front, using a cane I hadn't noticed the last time I'd seen her. The clerk handed her an envelope containing a check for $473,000, her full investment plus some recovered interest. Helen clutched it to her chest, tears streaming down her face. As she turned to walk back, she saw me standing in the back. Instead of returning to her seat, she made her way over to me. I met her halfway. "I wanted to thank you personally," she said, her voice soft but clear. "Detective Brennan told me you were instrumental in recovering this money, that you hired experts and worked tirelessly to track down every penny." "It was the least I could do," I said. "I'm just sorry it happened at all." Helen reached up and cupped my face with her wrinkled hand, the gesture so motherly it made my throat tight. "You're a good person, Natasha Cooper. Don't let what your parents did make you forget that. You chose to fight for what was right, even when it would have been easier to walk away. That takes real character." "Thank you," I whispered. "That means more than you know. One more thing," Helen said, pulling an envelope from her purse. "I wanted you to have this. What is it? Just a little note. Read it later, when you're alone. And remember, sometimes the people who hurt us the most also teach us the most important lessons." She patted my hand and returned to her seat. I slipped the envelope into my bag, too emotional to open it in that moment. The ceremony continued. Frank Delgado, an 82-year-old widower who'd lost $390,000, received his check and actually laughed with relief. The Johnson family, who'd lost their children's college funds, held hands and cried together. One by one, 17 families got their lives back. After the ceremony, I stood outside the courthouse with Marcus. He'd taken the day off work to be there with me, and I was grateful for his presence. "Mom and Dad's sentencing hearing is next week," he said quietly. "I know. Are you going to be there?" I nodded. "I have to be. I need to see it through to the end." "I'll be there too," he said. "Whatever happens, we face it together." The week passed in a blur of final preparations. Diana helped me write my victim impact statement, the testimony I would give at the sentencing hearing. Writing it was harder than I'd expected. How do you summarize what it feels like to have your own parents betray you? How do you put into words the violation of having your identity stolen, your name used for crimes you didn't commit? In the end, I kept it simple and honest. The sentencing hearing took place on a Thursday morning. The courtroom was packed with victims, lawyers, reporters, and observers. I sat in the front row with Marcus on one side and Diana on the other. Detective Sarah Brennan was there too, having become something of a friend through all of this. My parents were brought in wearing orange jumpsuits, looking small and diminished. When my mother's eyes met mine, I saw genuine remorse there. My father couldn't even look at me. The prosecutor went first, detailing the crimes and their impact. Then the defense attorney, Robert Chen, made his case for leniency. He talked about Gregory's manipulation, the blackmail, the fear my parents had lived with. Some of it was true, not all of it. Then it was time for victim impact statements. 3 of the fraud victims spoke, describing the fear and hardship they'd endured. Their words were powerful, and I saw my mother crying silently at the defense table. Finally, I was called to the stand. I walked to the witness box, was sworn in, and looked directly at my parents. "My name is Natasha Ann Cooper," I began, my voice steady despite the emotions churning inside me. "I'm 28 years old, and I work as a marketing consultant. I'm also a victim of the crimes committed by my parents." I went through it all. The stolen identity, the forged signatures, the shell companies created in my name. The fear I'd felt when Detective Brennan had pulled me out of that dinner. The betrayal when I'd learned my own parents had tried to frame me for their crimes. "They didn't just steal money from investors," I said. They stole my identity, my reputation, and my sense of safety in the world. They made me question every memory, every interaction we'd ever had. They taught me that even the people who are supposed to love you most can betray you in the cruelest ways. My mother was openly sobbing now. My father had his head down, shoulders shaking. But I continued and saw the judge lean forward slightly. They also taught me something else. They taught me that I'm stronger than I thought I was, that I can fight for justice even when it's hard, that I can forgive without forgetting, and that I can love people while still holding them accountable for their actions. I looked directly at my parents now. I don't know if I'll ever fully trust you again. I don't know if our relationship can be repaired. But I do know that I hope you use your time in prison to become better people. To understand the pain you caused. To make amends in whatever ways you can. Because despite everything, you're still my parents. And that still means something to me, even if it means something different now. I paused, gathering my final thoughts. Your Honor, I believe in justice. I believe my parents should face consequences for their crimes. But I also believe in redemption. I believe people can change. So I ask that you consider their cooperation, their genuine remorse, and their potential for rehabilitation when you decide their sentence. Not for their sake, but because I believe the justice system should be about more than just punishment. It should be about the possibility of people becoming better. When I finished, the courtroom was silent. I returned to my seat and Marcus squeezed my hand. The judge took a moment reviewing papers in front of her. Then she looked at my parents and began to speak. I've presided over many fraud cases, Judge Sandra Martinez said, her voice firm but not unkind. But I've rarely seen one that involved such a profound betrayal of family trust. You didn't just commit crimes against strangers. You victimized your own daughter, someone who trusted you completely. My mother let out a small sob. However, the judge continued, I've also been moved by the testimony I've heard today, particularly from Miss Cooper. She's shown remarkable grace and maturity in how she's handled this situation, and she's right that our justice system should consider the possibility of redemption. Judge Martinez sentenced my father to 5 years in federal prison, eligible for parole after serving 3 years. My mother received the same sentence. It was the minimum they could have received given the plea deal, but still substantial enough to reflect the seriousness of their crimes. I'm also ordering both of you to complete financial literacy and ethics education programs during your incarceration, the judge added. And upon your release, you will be on supervised probation for 5 years. Any violation of that probation, and you'll serve the remainder of your original sentence. After the gavel fell, I sat in the courtroom as everyone filed out. Marcus waited with me, not pushing me to move, just being present. Finally, I stood up. You did good, Tosh, he said. That statement was perfect. I meant every word. I know you did. That's what made it so powerful. As we left the courthouse, I felt simultaneously drained and energized. This chapter was closing. Not finished, not forgotten, but closing. My parents would serve their time. The victims had their money back. Gregory would spend decades in prison. Justice, imperfect as it always is, had been served. That evening, alone in my apartment, I remembered the envelope Helen Crawford had given me. I retrieved it from my bag and opened it carefully. Inside was a handwritten note on pretty stationery decorated with violets. Dear Natasha, it read, I want to tell you something I learned when my husband died 5 years ago. People will disappoint you. People you love will hurt you. Sometimes the hurt will be so deep you think you'll never recover. But here's the secret. You don't recover by building walls around your heart. You recover by staying open to love even after you've been hurt. You heal by choosing grace over bitterness, by fighting for what's right even when it's hard, by being the kind of person you wish others had been for you. You've already learned this lesson, I think. You fought for us strangers who lost money because of your family's crimes. You fought even though you didn't have to. That's who you really are, Natasha. Not the victim, not the daughter of criminals, but a fighter, a champion, a light in the darkness. I'm 82 years old and I don't have many years left, but I wanted to leave something behind for someone who reminded me that goodness still exists in this world. Please accept the enclosed gift not as charity, but as an investment in the future I won't live to see. Use it to build something beautiful from these ashes. With all my love and admiration, Helen Crawford. Folded inside the note was a check for $20,000. I stared at it, tears blurring the numbers. Helen had died 3 weeks ago. I'd seen the obituary in the newspaper. Shed passed peacefully in her sleep, her savings restored, her dignity intact, and Shed left me this gift. I sat on my couch and cried, not the bitter tears I'd shed so many times over the past months, but cleansing tears of gratitude and loss and hope all mixed together. Helen Crawford, who owed me nothing, who'd suffered because of my family, had given me permission to move forward, had given me the means to start fresh. I looked at the check again, this time with determination. I knew exactly what I was going to do with it. 6 months after the sentencing, I stood in a small office space in the renovated warehouse district downtown, looking at the freshly painted sign on the door. Cooper Ethics Consulting. Helen's $20,000, combined with my own savings and a small business loan, had been enough to start my own company. I specialized in helping small businesses implement ethical financial practices, teaching them how to avoid the kind of fraud my parents had committed. It was meaningful work, and it was growing faster than I'd expected. My first big client was a family-owned investment firm that wanted to overhaul their compliance procedures after seeing news coverage of my parents' case. They hired me to develop a comprehensive ethics training program for their staff. The irony wasn't lost on me, but I appreciated it. I was taking the worst thing that had ever happened to me and using it to help others avoid the same pitfalls. Marcus stopped by most weeks, usually bringing coffee and pastries. Today was Thursday, our unofficial brother-sister lunch day. We sat in my small office, eating sandwiches and catching up. "How are the therapy sessions going?" he asked. I'd started seeing a therapist 3 months ago, finally ready to process everything that had happened. Dr. Patricia Webb specialized in family trauma, and she was helping me understand how to hold seemingly contradictory truths. That I could love my parents while being angry at them, that I could grieve the family I'd lost while building a new life, that healing wasn't linear, and forgiveness was a process, not a destination. "They're good," I said. "Hard, but good." Dr. Webb says, "I'm making real progress." "More at peace." "I am," I admitted. "I'm starting to feel like myself again. Not the same person I was before all this happened, but someone stronger. Someone who knows what she's capable of surviving." My phone buzzed with an email notification. Another potential client, a nonprofit organization that wanted to discuss financial transparency training for their board. I smiled and made a note to call them back after lunch. "Have you talked to Mom and Dad lately?" Marcus asked carefully. He knew this was still a sensitive subject. "I write to them every 2 weeks," I said. "Short letters. Nothing too personal. Just updates on my life, letting them know I'm okay." They write back, telling me about the programs they're taking in prison. Dad's teaching financial literacy to other inmates, which I find both ironic and oddly appropriate. Mom works in the prison library. "Are you planning to visit them?" I paused, considering. Maybe. Not yet, but maybe eventually. I'm not ready to see them face to face. But I'm also not ready to completely cut them out of my life forever. So for now, letters work. What I didn't tell Marcus was that my parents' letters had changed over the months. At first, they'd been full of excuses and self-pity. But gradually, they'd started to show real understanding of what they'd done. My father's last letter had included this line: "I wake up every morning and remember that I betrayed you. That's my punishment, more than the prison walls. Living with what I did to my own daughter." My mother had written, "I'm learning that love without respect is just another form of selfishness. I said I loved you, but I didn't respect you enough to protect you. I'm sorry, and I know sorry isn't enough, but I'm trying to become someone who would be worthy of your forgiveness, even if I never receive it." Their words didn't fix anything, but they were a start. I joined a support group. I told Marcus, "For victims of family financial crimes, it's actually really helpful to talk to other people who understand what this feels like." "That's great, Tosh. What's the group like?" "Smaller than you'd think, but the people are amazing. There's a woman named Jenna whose sister emptied her trust fund and fled to Canada. A guy named David whose business partner, who was also his uncle, ran their company into the ground with fraudulent deals. We meet every other Tuesday and we just talk, share our experiences, support each other. Jenna had become a real friend, someone who understood the complicated grief of being betrayed by family. Wed started getting coffee outside of the support group meetings, and she was helping me learn to trust again. Detective Sarah Brennan had also stayed in touch. She'd become an unexpected friend. Someone who'd seen me at my worst, and somehow still respected me. She called occasionally just to check in, and last month Shed invited me to speak at a law enforcement conference about identity theft from a victim's perspective. I'd been terrified, but I'd done it, and the response had been overwhelming. Several people had approached me afterward, asking if I did consulting work on fraud prevention. That had led to 3 new business contracts. Life was rebuilding itself, piece by piece. 1 year after the arrests, I did something I'd been planning for months. I established the Helen Crawford Scholarship Fund for young women pursuing business degrees with a focus on ethics. I seeded it with $10,000 from my business profits and set up a structure for ongoing contributions. The first scholarship, a $5,000 award, would be given out the following spring. The day the scholarship fund became official, I visited Helen's grave. It was in a peaceful cemetery on the edge of town, under a large oak tree. I brought violets, remembering the stationery Shed used for her note. "Thank you," I said quietly, placing the flowers on her headstone. For seeing something in me I couldn't see in myself. For reminding me that kindness exists even after betrayal. "I'm going to make sure your gift keeps giving, Helen. I'm going to help young women become the kind of ethical business leaders the world needs. Because of you." The wind rustled through the oak leaves, and for just a moment, I felt a sense of peace so profound it took my breath away. The scholarship ceremony took place the following April, in the business school auditorium at State University. 50 people attended, including several of the fraud victims, Detective Sarah Brennan, Diana Porter, Marcus, and even my support group friends. The scholarship committee had reviewed 23 applications and selected a recipient, a 20-year-old junior named Emma Santos who'd written a compelling essay about her commitment to ethical leadership in corporate America. I watched from the front row as Emma accepted her award, her face glowing with pride and gratitude. She gave a short speech about how much this meant to her family, how it would help her finish her degree without taking on more student loans. She talked about wanting to be a force for good in the business world, to help companies succeed while treating people fairly. As I listened to her, I thought about the chain of events that had led to this moment. My parents' crimes, Gregory's manipulation, Helen's grace, my decision to fight instead of giving up. All of it had brought me here, to this auditorium, watching a young woman get an opportunity that might change her life. After the ceremony, Emma approached me. "Miss Cooper, I just wanted to thank you personally. I know about what happened to you, what your family went through. And I want you to know that your story inspired me. You could have become bitter, but instead you became better. That's the kind of person I want to be. You're going to do amazing things," I told her. "I can already tell." As the crowd dispersed, Marcus found me and pulled me into a hug. "I'm proud of you, Tash. Look at what you've built from all this chaos." "We built it," I corrected. "You stood by me through everything. I couldn't have done any of this without you. That's what family does," he said. "Real family, anyway." That evening, I returned to my apartment and stood at my window, looking out at the city lights. My phone buzzed with a text from Jenna asking if I wanted to grab brunch on Sunday. I replied yes, smiling at how normal that felt. Having plans, having friends, having a life that was moving forward instead of being stuck in the trauma of the past. I thought about the mysterious text message that had started all of this. "Get up and leave. Now. Don't say anything to your parents." Detective Sarah's warning had saved me from being in that house when my parents were arrested, had given me a head start on protecting myself. But in a way, it had saved me in a deeper sense too. It had forced me to see the truth, to fight for myself, to become someone stronger than I'd been before. My identity had been stolen, but I'd taken it back. Not by erasing what had happened, but by redefining what my name meant. Natasha Cooper wasn't the shell company owner, or the fraud scheme victim, or even the daughter of criminals. Natasha Cooper was a survivor, a fighter, an entrepreneur, a friend, a force for good in the world. I looked at my reflection in the window, backlit by my apartment lights. I saw someone who'd been broken and had chosen to heal. Someone who'd been betrayed and had chosen to trust again. Someone who'd lost everything and had built something new from the ruins. The journey hadn't been easy. There were still hard days when the anger and hurt felt overwhelming. Nights when I questioned whether I'd ever fully recover. Moments when I wondered if I'd made the right choices about my parents, whether I should have cut them off completely or forgiven them faster. But mostly, I felt okay. Better than okay, actually. I felt purpose. I felt hope. I felt like myself again, only stronger, wiser, more resilient. My phone buzzed one more time. An email notification. Another potential client wanting to discuss ethics training. I opened my laptop and started drafting a response, a small smile on my face. Life wasn't perfect. My relationship with my parents would probably never be what it once was. The scars from this experience would always be part of me. But scars were proof of healing, evidence that you'd survived something that tried to destroy you. And I had survived. More than that, I'd thrived. As I typed out my response to the potential client, I thought about the life lesson I'd learned through all of this. The truth I'd want to share with anyone going through something similar. Your identity isn't defined by what others do to you, or even by the name you carry. It's defined by how you respond when everything is taken away. True strength isn't never falling. It's getting back up, clearing your name not just legally but spiritually, and choosing to build something meaningful from the ruins. Family can hurt you in ways strangers never could because you gave them your trust, but that doesn't mean you stop trusting or loving. It means you learn to protect yourself while keeping your heart open to growth. Forgiveness is a gift you give yourself, not them. And sometimes the greatest justice is simply refusing to let someone else's betrayal turn you into something you're not. I'd been given a choice after that dinner, after that text message, after learning the truth about my parents. I could have become bitter, closed off, cynical. I could have let their crimes define the rest of my life. Instead, I'd chosen to fight, to heal, to build, to become someone even stronger than before. That was my real identity. Not the forged signatures or stolen social security number, but the choices I made every single day to be better, to do better, to help others avoid the pain I'd experienced. I finished the email, signed it with my name, my reclaimed and redefined name, and hit send. Then I closed my laptop, made myself a cup of tea, and settled onto my couch with a book. Just a normal Thursday evening. Just me, living my life, moving forward one day at a time. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything. Before I share what I want to ask you, I need to say something. If you've made it this far in my story, thank you. Thank you for listening, for caring, for giving me your time and attention. Stories like mine matter because they remind us that we're not alone in our struggles, that betrayal doesn't have to break us, that we're all capable of more strength than we realize. So here's my question for you. Have you ever had to forgive someone who hurt you deeply? How did you find the balance between holding them accountable and allowing yourself to heal? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, if it made you feel something or think differently about forgiveness and resilience, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Share it with someone who might need to hear this message. Your support helps me reach more people who need to know that survival is possible, that healing is real, that life can be good again even after everything falls apart. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And remember, no matter what you're facing, no matter who has hurt you have the power to define your own identity. You have the strength to rebuild. You are more resilient than you know. Take care of yourselves, be kind to each other, and never let anyone steal who you truly are.